This tutorial is about the type tool. The type tool is located on your toolbar right here, the T. It's one of those tools with other hidden tools, so if you click and hold, you can type in an area, type on a path, vertically type, vertically in an area, vertically on a path, and then there's the touch type tool, and I'll show you what that does. It's just a kind of a convenience tool. Okay, two ways to get text into your design. You can just click and then start typing. If you do it this way, you can manipulate it just like you would any other object. When you get your selection arrow, you have a transformation box, and you can grab corners or any of these boxes and transform that text. Notice how I'm changing the characters, right? They're getting bigger. Or I can squish it together, or I can rotate it. Okay, I'm transforming the characters. The other way you can get text is if you want to create boundaries. So I just made a text box, and I could type something in it. I'm just going to use this dummy text right here. Now notice that when I get my transformation tool, or excuse me, their selection tool, and I try to transform, I am not transforming the characters, I am moving the box. And so the characters within it get adjusted. So right now, if I make my box huge, I only need 5 lines of text, versus if I make my box a lot smaller, I need multiple lines for it to fit, but it's containing those characters. I am not resizing, rotating, doing anything to the characters inside. Okay. Now, I can still manipulate them. I just have to go through other options to do it. For instance, if I want to rotate, I'm rotating the box here. I did not rotate the text. It remained horizontal. So let me step back. If I want to rotate the characters, I have to go get my rotation tool. Use my rotation tool to rotate the characters. If I grab a corner of this box, I'm not enlarging the characters, but I can change the character size right here, my character panel. So I can change them, I just have to go about it a different way other than using my selection arrow. Okay, let me show you what this touch type tool does. Right now, if I wanted to manipulate any of these characters by themselves, I would have to use my type tool, highlight it, and then I would have to use my character panel and resize that way. Let me step back. This new type touch tool allows you to just click on a character, and it puts a transformation box around it. And then I can manipulate this transformation box just like I would any box, right? I can resize it, I can rotate it, and I can very quickly manipulate it versus highlight it, go through your character panel, change the settings to be what I want it to be. So it's kind of a convenient tool. Is it necessary? No. Is it nice to have? Yes. All right, that leads us to the character panel. So let me go ahead and get some text. Character panel is in Essentials Classic, located on your option bar right here. It's also a panel that appears over here. If you are in Essentials mode, by having your text highlighted, or if you click on your text tool, it automatically appears on your right side. You have your character panel and your paragraph panel. Both of these are going to be great for your current project and manipulating the text in your design. All right, so let's first talk about the character panel. I'm going to go ahead and open up mine and leave it open permanently right next to it. You're going to probably see few options right here. There is a menu, and one of the menu options is to show more options, so you're going to click on that, and it almost doubles in size what's available to you in the character panel. The first option, this is your font family right here. This is the name of your typeface, right? As you scroll over it, it's giving you a preview right on your design. I'm going to stick with Myriad Pro. Underneath that, this is your style. So certain typefaces have multiple styles made by the designer. Myriad Pro has many. You've got condensed, condensed italics, bold, condensed italics, so on and so forth. So you're still considered part of Myriad Pro. They're just modifications of it. Some typefaces do not have any styles. They don't have any modifications. Right? It's just dependent on which font you choose. All right, all of these show an icon, and the icon gives you a good indicator of what it does. But you can also hover your mouse or your cursor over this tool or this setting, and it will tell you what it does. So this says it sets the font size. So we know that this is the font size. All right, my text is selected. If I increase the number, it's increasing the size of the text. If I decrease it, obviously decreasing the size of the text. You can use your arrows. You can plug in a number. You can also do a preset. Next to your font size, you have your leading. Leading is line spacing, the distance between your baselines. Mine is set on auto, so you can kind of see that as I was increasing my font size, the leading size increased too. Right? That makes sense. You want more space between your lines of text if it's bigger, less space if it's smaller. That doesn't mean you can't change that. Right now I'm looking at this, and there's a big gap between the T and the D. If I was a designer and I wanted these words to go together, I would lessen this size. Okay, so now I can come in, tighten that up. Now they look like they belong together. The next couple deal with kerning. Kerning, we know, is the space between characters. These two work in different ways, and actually they're going to name it differently. They call this one kerning, and they call this one tracking. Okay, but they do the same thing. They're changing the size between characters. Let me show you how they do that. The first one, if you look at the little icon, there's a slash between it, and that kind of give it away that I need to put my cursor between two characters. So if I wanted to increase or decrease this space between the D and the E, I put my cursor, and when I did that, notice how a number appeared. Before there wasn't a number. Now I can change that number. Smaller the number, the closer the D and the E get. The higher the number, the farther apart they get. Now notice, while it shifted the EMO over, it didn't change the spacing here. It just changed the spacing between the D and the E. All right. Now, to work at this one, you can see that I have to highlight characters. This one is you highlight many characters, as many as you want. So I can highlight 3. I can highlight all. I can even just select, and it assumes that I want all of this text highlighted. Once you have the characters that you want to work with and their spaces, that's when this number disappears and this number appears. And so now if I want to spread them apart, higher the number. You can see that the space between all the characters is changing. Or if I lower it, the space between all the characters is lowering. Okay, kerning is on both of these. They just work differently. Next, this skews your letters. Right? And I can do that manually. I can grab my selection tool and notice that now, if this height was 100%, I've shifted the horizontal scale almost to 50% of what it was. All right, so I can do this manually, stretch it out now, it's 165% what it was. Or I can come in and I can plug in numbers. If I want it back to the 1-to-1 ratio of what the original Myriad Pro was, I just type in 100. No skewing. 100%, 100%. Right? I can also come in here and, like anything else, shift my percentages. I'm going to go back to 100%. This one is your baseline shift. Right? So if I want to raise this E up off of its baseline, a positive number raises it up, a negative number puts it below the baseline. This last one, you'll recognize this symbol as a rotation. So I just changed the degrees, and it's rotating that text. This bar down here, let me go ahead and select the entire group of text. If I know that I want to change everything to all caps, I don't have to go and retype all of my text. I can just hit this button, and all of my lowercase become uppercase. If I don't want it, click off of it, I'm back to uppercase and lowercase. This one does the small caps which it takes the uppercase and leaves those alone. Anything lower, it turns them into capital letters, but they're going to be smaller than the original. Okay, so notice how the T stayed the same, but the X turned into uppercase X, but it's much smaller than the T. I can highlight something and make it a superscript or a subscript. I can also do underlining or strike through. If I want to reset my entire panel, because I've made a lot of changes, if I want to reset it back to the default, there is an option under my menu, reset, and it goes back to everything auto, no skewing, no rotating, no baseline shifts, none of the special effects, just back to default. Okay. Now let's talk about the character panel, or excuse me, the paragraph panel. The paragraph panel is going to affect a big body of text. Okay, typically you wouldn't do some of this stuff with just one line, but yeah, you might. You have your justification, right? And you're very familiar with that through your word processors. You have left justification. That's the default, where everything on the left aligns with whatever your text shape is. In this case, it's a text box. You have your center justification. Everything is centered within your shape or your, in this case, text box, or right justified. Okay, they're aligned up along the right. These last four, they're justified on both sides. The only difference is what the last line does. So if I justify left and right, you see they line up, but the bottom line is left justified. On this one, the bottom line is centered. The bottom line here is right justified. And this one, they make it be justified on both sides. Now, some of these do some awkward spacing, and you as a designer have to figure out what you want to do. The next set, you're most likely not going to use these in this class, but you have indentions, okay, left and right. You also have beginning of a paragraph indentation. And down here you have the space before and after a paragraph. You get to decide how big that line spacing is. And finally, and you probably will access this, when you do a body text, the default is to put hyphens in, okay, to break up those long words so that you're filling more of that line. If you don't want those hyphens made, those dashes put in, you can uncheck it. Now notice what happened. Because this word was so long, before it hyphenated, it broke it up. When I take it away, now it has to be on its own line. So look at this awkward spacing. So you have to determine what's going to work for your design. All right, the last thing I want to do is deal with some kind of creative ways to deal with text. All right, typing in an area, typing on a path, extending letters. So let's first do type in a shape. All right, I could come change over to a new tool. I'm actually going to show you how to do it by keeping on the type tool. First, I need to make a shape. So I can do an auto shape, like a circle, or I can do my own custom shape. Next step would be to grab my text tool, and notice that the cursor here, it's in a box. All right, that's just normal type tool. If I come and I hover on the edge of a shape, it turns into a circle as my cursor, and that's telling me this is going to type in the shape. It's going to turn this shape into a text box. So if I click, notice how the black disappeared, the outline is no longer there, and now if I type, it's filling in that circle. My circle is my boundary now. Same thing happens with this shape. If I come near the edge of it, okay, normal type tool, this is type in area, click. The fill goes away, it becomes a guideline for typing inside of it. Now, if I have too much text that can't fit inside a shape, that's when I get this red box. It's just indicating there are characters that I can't see. They do not fit inside. So I have to manipulate them, maybe change their size, maybe change my shape so that they can fit inside of it, and I would get this red box to disappear. All right, that's typing in shape. Typing on path, I first need to start with a path, and that can be me drawing it, okay, a line. Or I can also type on a path that originated as a shape, all right? So what I do again is if I get my text tool or my type tool, not being near the object, it's just a normal type tool. If I come and hover above it, notice how the cursor changed, okay? Normal cursor, type on path cursor. Wherever I click, that's where the path of text will start. So click, let me type something. The line went away. It now became a guideline. It's my baseline, and the text is following it. There's that red box again. It means I've typed too much. It doesn't fit along the path. So I'm going to have to adjust something to make sure I see all my characters. There are type on path options. They are under the object menu, path, nope, line. They are on the type, let me click it. Type on path options, there they are. Okay, so you have type on path options that you can manipulate. You can also change where the path starts of text, okay? So right here, this line indicates where my text starts, and I can hover my cursor over it and shift. So if I want to move the start of it around, I can. All right, if I wanted to come type on path, like type around the circle versus type in the circle, again, I go get my text tool. Now, remember, this is normal type. This is type in shape because it's a circle. So for me to get the type on path cursor, I have to hold my option key. So I click my option key. Now I get my type on path wherever I click. That's going to start my text, and I can type around. If I need to shift it, remember that I get my selection tool, and then I need to go move those lines around. And finally, let's pretend like I want to actually change this text. Change this typeface a little bit, that I want to manipulate it. Maybe I want this T to extend all the way over here. All right, to do that, you need to turn this into a shape. Turn these into shapes. You select it, and it's editable text right now. I could go in with my text tool and I could edit it. As soon as I do this next step, I can no longer edit the text. All right, I'll have to look at it as shapes or objects. All right, if I click on the menu type, there is an option for create outlines. Now you can see it's a group of objects. I can ungroup it, and now it's like I drew a shape that looks like this T. It has anchor points that I can go grab and move. So I talked about extending this T. I can grab these two anchor points, bring them over.